Alright everybody, welcome back to Candy Bar Creepshow. And tonight, we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite Christmas horror flicks. I was planning on doing my forthcoming top 10 favorite vampire flicks for this episode of Candy Bar Creepshow, but with the holiday season at full swing, I decided to go ahead and do this episode sort of last minute. So I think with all that said, we're going to dive straight into the meat and potatoes of this thing. We're going to list my top 10 favorite Christmas horror flicks from least to best, from number 10 to number 1, and we're going to start tonight with the infamous Silent Night, Deadly Night sequel, the 4th sequel in the franchise, and the 5th overall entry in the whole franchise itself, Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. Let's dive in. Let me tell you about a movie that I adore unapologetically. Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. Yes, it's ridiculous, sleazy, and campy beyond belief, but it's also an absolute gem of its kind. There's something magical about the trashy yet semi-creepy atmosphere of this bizarre entry in the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise. I mean, who even thought a killer toy maker and his homicidal puppet child belonged in the same series as Silent Night, Deadly Night's axe-wielding Santa? And yet, here we are, blessed with this glorious oddity. The movie was directed by Martin Kitrosser, and apologies if I'm saying that name incorrectly, who somehow managed to rope in Mickey Rooney, the same Mickey Rooney who once condemned the original Silent Night, Deadly Night for its morally bankrupt concept. Oh, the irony. Rooney plays Joe Petto, yes, as in Geppetto, the toy maker with a dark past and a penchant for making murderous toys. His performance is the perfect blend of unhinged and over the top, and it's everything I didn't know I needed. The special effects, considering the film's obvious budget constraints, are honestly pretty creepy and inventive. Take Larry the Larva, for example. A grotesque little toy that burrows into somebody's eye. It's so absurdly grotesque, yet it works. These moments aren't just campy, they're ingenious in a trashy B-movie kind of way. But what really draws me to The Toy Maker is its weirdly unsettling vibe. It has this almost dreamlike quality, like a fever dream Christmas nightmare. The story's darker themes, parental abuse, grief, and identity, are buried under a pile of sleaze and schlock, yet somehow they peek through just enough to give the film a strange, haunting edge. And then there's Pino. Oh, Pino, the Pinocchio-inspired android son who takes the concept of mommy issues to terrifying and deeply uncomfortable extremes. That climactic scene where he tries to replace Derek and get too close to Sarah, it's deeply disturbing in a way only this movie could pull off. But make no mistake, I love this movie because of its flaws. The terrible acting, endearing. The nonsensical plot twists, delightful. The sheer audacity of its premise, iconic. It's so bizarre that I still can't believe it's part of the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise. And yet, that's what makes it so special. It stands out in a way few franchise sequels dare to. So that was The Toy Maker, aka Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. What about you, though? Did you like that film? Did you grow up with the film like I did, watching it on VHS and being totally mind-blown by its weird plot and weird acting and sleazy overall vibe? Because I know I did, and I wouldn't change a thing about it, because I just love that movie as dark and trashy and cheesy and sleazy as it is. I just can't help but love The Toy Maker. And with that said, I think it's time to move on to my number 9 choice in this overall top 10 list, which goes to, triumphantly, I must say, towards Black Christmas, the 2006 remake, not the original, the 2006 remake. And with that said, I think we should jump right in and talk about this very weird, very bizarre remake. Let's talk about it. When I first saw Black Christmas 2006 in theaters, I'll admit I hated it. I thought it was loud, ridiculous, and a poor shadow of the 1974 original. But time has a funny way of changing things. Over the years, I've come to appreciate its weirdness, its bold choices, and its unapologetic embrace of excess. Now, I can confidently say that it has worked its way into my top 10 horror movie Christmas list, a feat that I never thought possible. The cast alone is enough to make this film a guilty pleasure. Katie Cassidy, Michelle Trottenberg, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Lacey Chabert, the list goes on. Their characters might be frustratingly annoying at times, but they're also oddly entertaining. And honestly, isn't that what you want in a Christmas slasher? The characters are over the top, and their exaggerated quirks add to the film's campy charm. From a technical standpoint, this movie is surprisingly strong. The cinematography captures the festive yet ominous mood, with its overtly red and green color palette evoking a twisted version of Christmas cheer. Shirley Walker's score is hauntingly atmospheric and adds an eerie undercurrent to the carnage. And let's talk about those kills. Visceral, creative, and unapologetically brutal. The icicle death, as brief as it is, remains one of my favorites for its sheer simplicity and visual impact. What I've grown to admire most is how this film carves out its own identity. It doesn't try to replicate the subtlety of the 1974 original, and that's okay. It leans hard into the grotesque backstory of Billy and Agnes, turning them into almost mythical monsters. Is it over the top? Absolutely. Are they over the top? Absolutely. But there's something admirable about a film that swings for the fences, even if it doesn't hit that fence every time. That's where the boldness comes in. It's not afraid to be grotesque, absurd, and messy in the best of ways. I'll even go as far to say that, in some ways, I prefer this version to the original. It's faster paced, more visually striking, and unapologetically modern in its approach. That said, the 1974 film's ending and subtlety give it an edge over this one, but just barely. If the remake falters anywhere, it's in its third act. Studio interference led to a more violent ending that, while entertaining, feels a bit forced compared to the tension built earlier in the film. But still, Black Christmas 2006 has grown on me because it dares to be bold. It's a chaotic holiday horror that revels in its excess, and I respect it for that. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. It's entertaining, stylish, and just plain fun. A bloody, garish gift that I've come to appreciate over time. So that was Black Christmas 2006. I did see that in theaters, I'm pretty sure on opening night. I don't recall at this point if that was actually in November or December when it came out. It might have been on Christmas Day for all I know. It was almost 20 years ago at this point, 18 years ago or so. But I remember not liking it in the theaters, as I said earlier when we talked about the film. I just wasn't a huge fan at the time. The movie has grown on me and it's made its way into my list. What can I say? It's a good movie. Almost better than the original, but again, like I said before, that third act it doesn't fall apart, I think it falls flat in comparison to the original. But it's almost better, So with all that said, talking about Black Christmas 2006, I think we should move on to my number 8 choice. Excuse me, I'm doing math totally wrong, I'm just not a math guy. My number 8 choice, which is Better Watch Out from 2016. And with that said, let's dive straight in. Better Watch Out. What a delightfully twisted piece of holiday horror. The premise alone grabs you. A babysitter, a pain-in-the-ass kid with a crush, and strange happenings on a quiet, snowy night. But then, bam, that plot twist hits you like a brick through the window, flipping everything you thought you knew about the story on its head. I mean, who saw that coming the first time they watched this movie? My money is on nobody. It's a film that starts out by playing with your expectations and then smashes them to pieces, leaving you giddy and horrified all at once. The acting, absolutely top-notch. Levi Miller delivers such a layered performance as Luke, making the character both chilling and weirdly charming. Olivia DeJonge, and apologies if I'm saying that name wrong, as Ashley, grounds the film with her strong, resourceful portrayal of the ultimate babysitter. And let's not forget about Ed Oxenbould as Garrett, whose comic timing and eventual moral conflict add even more depth. These actors work seamlessly together to create something that feels truly unique. And the cinematography, every frame is dripping with atmosphere. Soft Christmas lights juxtaposed against the mounting tension of the story. The film's visual style perfectly captures the cozy yet unsettling vibe of a holiday horror movie. Chris Peckover clearly knew what he was doing behind the camera, and it shows. What makes Better Watch Out truly memorable for me, though, is that it isn't just another killer Santa flick. The psychological twists and the way it flips traditional horror tropes on its head are what firmly puts it on my top 10 horror Christmas movie lists of all time. It's smart, subversive, and genuinely surprising. Everything I want in a holiday horror movie. Honestly, I can't wait to rewatch it and introduce it to more friends this Christmas season. So that was Better Watch Out, a very, very surprisingly good Christmas horror movie. I haven't watched it too many times since we first initially watched it when I got it on Blu-ray, but the few times that I've watched it since, the movie's only grown on me. It hasn't gotten stale, it hasn't gotten boring, it hasn't waned in goodness. I still reflect on it. I still think it's a very, 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 very strong, very good Christmas horror movie. Very surprising twists and turns, and if you haven't seen it, I really suggest you check it out. It is definitely a great horror movie and a great Christmas horror movie, and I think at this point it's still very, almost 10 years later, extremely underrated and very underappreciated as by the horror community, I guess you could say. But with that said, we're going to dive straight into my number 7 choice, which goes, of course, to the original 1974 version of Black Christmas. Let's talk about it. Black Christmas, the OG holiday slasher that still holds up after all these years. There's something so hauntingly beautiful about its slow, deliberate pace. The way Bob Clark builds tension through voyeuristic cinematography, it's like you're the killer, creeping through the sorority house yourself. And that score, Carl Zeter's eerie experimental music, with its warped piano strings and distorted tape effects, is a masterclass in unsettling sound design. Sure, the acting isn't exactly stellar across the board, but hey, Olivia Hussey as Jess and Margot Kidder as the brash Barb bring enough charisma to carry the film, and even if some performances falter, the characters are still compelling nonetheless. They feel real, flawed, albeit a little messy, which only adds to the film's charm. Plus, let's be honest, the weirdness of the movie, the obscene phone calls, the ambiguous ending, more than make up for any acting shortcomings. And speaking of weirdness, this film is a treasure trove of spooky Christmas imagery. The killer's shadowy POV shots, the rocking chair in the attic with the dead woman suffocated, Claire's suffocated fate. These are the kind of visuals that stick with you. It's no wonder that Black Christmas influenced Halloween and so many other slashers that came after it. It's a classic in every sense of the word. And the production backstory is fascinating. Inspired by the urban legend The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, filmed in Toronto and made for just $686,000, is quite the achievement. The fact that Bob Clark refused to give Warner Brothers the cliché ending they wanted is just another reason to respect him. Instead of spoon-feeding us the answers, he gave us that chilling ambiguity. Is Billy still in the house? What's his deal with Agnes? We'll never know, and that's what makes it terrifying. I'll admit, I almost prefer the 2006 remake over this one, but the original wins out in the end. thanks to its eerie restraint and its groundbreaking approach. This movie isn't just a slasher, it's a piece of horror history, a must-watch every Christmas season. So that was Black Christmas, the original. Love the film, fantastic mood, atmosphere, vibe. You can see the elements that John Carpenter was sort of inspired by from this film. And I just think it's a very strong, very creepy, very moody slasher. Very good stuff. Slow on purpose, sort of a slow drawl, a slow burn. Lots of slow-moving shots. Slow is a great word to define Black Christmas, but it's slow in all the right ways and for all the right reasons. It's not slow in a boring, this movie sucks way. It's just perfect. And if you've seen that film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But enough about Black Christmas well, actually, no, not enough about Black Christmas 1974. What I want to reiterate again is that I think the remake, the 2006 remake, I haven't seen the 2019 remake at the time I'm recording this video, but the 2006 remake is almost better than that 74 original, but the 74 original's ending, I think, is a little bit stronger, which sort of puts the original above the remake. But yeah, for the next movie on the list, though, I think we're going to dive straight in to one of the most bizarre, original, quirky Christmas horror films ever made. It's got a lot of interesting plot beats. The main character is fascinating. It's sort of a avant-garde, preemptive, psychological take on, what is it called? The fugue state that some people enter. And if you've seen this movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But of course, we're talking about, I think it's from 1980, Christmas Evil. Let's dive right in. Christmas Evil. What a film. It's not just a holiday slasher, it's a strangely poignant character study, wrapped in tinsel and soaked in blood. The movie's oddball charm lies in how it balances its bizarre, dreamlike style with moments of raw humanity. Harry Stadling, played by Brandon Maggart, is such a fascinating character. You can't help but feel bad for him. He's just this lonely, broken man who's trying to be a real-life Santa Claus in a world that's too cruel to accept him. And for a while, you actually root for the character, his dedication, his handmade toys, his attempts to spread joy, but then things take a darker turn. His descent into madness is both horrifying and tragic, yet you can't entirely hate him, even when he starts murdering people. And that's the weird magic of this movie. And that ending, the infamous flying van scene, is pure avant-garde genius. Of course, he doesn't literally fly off into the night. This is clearly his tragic, delusional death. But the way it's visualized is just so strange and perfect. It's this surreal, almost fairy tale finish to a story that's anything but. Add in the haunting score and the dreamy cinematography, and the whole thing feels like a feverish Christmas nightmare you can't wake up from. The production quirks are fascinating too. It was made on a modest budget in New Jersey, but the visuals are so striking. No wonder Christmas Evil gained a cult following, even being celebrated by John Waters of all people. And let's not forget its brushes with notoriety, being confiscated in the UK during the video nasty panic. This movie has history, style, and a whole lot of heart, even if it is a twisted one. So that was Christmas Evil, one of the most original Christmas horror films out there, one of the most interesting Killer Santa movies out there for sure, and one of the best, I think the best, Christmas horror films in existence. It's in my top 10 list. It's pretty high up on the list at this point when you think about it. Definitely check out Christmas Evil if you haven't already. The ending alone with the flying van is enough to warrant a watch just for the sheer craziness of that concept. But with that said, let's move straight into my next choice. We're going to go straight into 1984's magnum opus, the horror Christmas comedy to end all horror Christmas comedies, at least at the time, Gremlins. Let's talk about it. Gremlins, an absolute classic, and a personal favorite since I was a kid. What's not to love? The spooky vibe, the mischievous humor, and the gleeful chaos make it a perfect mix of horror and comedy. I was never scared of it as a kid, I just thought it was awesome. The Gremlins themselves are pure mayhem, but it's impossible not to laugh as they terrorize Kingston Falls in the most ridiculous ways possible. And the violence, over the top in the best of ways, like when Stripe melts into the fountain, or when gremlins meet their end in hilariously gruesome ways, like getting microwaved or blown up in the theater. It's gross, sure, but also so satisfying. And then there's Gizmo. Oh, sweet Gizmo. He's the beating heart of the movie. Cute, brave, and just so iconic. Howie Mandel's voice work gives him such a charm, and I love how the film uses him as a constant foil to Stripe and his mischievous crew of gremlins. Of course, Phoebe Cates delivers one of the most jaw-dropping moments with her Santa monologue. It's so bizarre and tonally wild and out of place that it takes the film into such a dark space, but somehow works all the same. And that's the magic of Gremlins. It's unafraid to be weird. But let's talk about that ending, the dad's speech at the very tail end of the movie, where he says, "There just might be a gremlin in your house." It's such a perfectly eerie note to close on, leaving you with just enough mystery to keep you wondering. From Joe Dante's sharp direction to Jerry Goldsmith's fantastic score, this movie is a masterclass in blending scares and Christmas laughs. It's no wonder it led to the creation of the PG-13 rating. It pushed the envelope for what family films could get away with at the time. And the production details are just as fun as the movie itself. Steven Spielberg's touch as executive producer is all over the film, and Chris Columbus's script manages to be both silly and genuinely creepy. The practical effects, the puppetry, the set designs, it all comes together to create something truly unforgettable. Gremlins isn't just a Christmas movie, it's a Christmas horror event. And I am here for every single moment of it. So that was Gremlins, a Christmas comedy horror classic. It's been a Christmas comedy horror classic since it first came out decades ago. I love the film and watching it since I was a kid, and I think it really is a staple of American cinema, not just Christmas horror cinema, but American cinema in general, regardless of the genre or subgenre or whatever you want to call it. It is an absolute American classic. And with that said, speaking of American classics and Americana, I think we should move right into my next choice on the list. But before we do, let me button up the Gremlins conversation, because I'm moving too fast, with this note of interest. I think Gremlins 2 is 10 times better than Gremlins 1, but since it's not really a Christmas film, it didn't make the list. But anyway, moving on to my next choice, which is the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, the masterpiece, the one and only. Let's talk about it. Punish. Silent Night, Deadly Night. Where do I even start? This film is the Christmas horror masterpiece. It's dark, twisted, and unapologetically bizarre. A brilliant amalgamation of slasher tropes and holiday cheer gone horribly, horribly wrong. Every time I revisit this gem, I'm reminded of how much of a unique legacy it has carved out for itself, despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy it faced upon its release. A killer Santa? The audacity. The marketing alone stirred up a storm back in 1984, but now it's iconic. The lore of the film is one of the greatest strengths. Billy Chapman's journey from traumatized child to axe-wielding Punisher is as compelling as it is unsettling. The backstory builds a universe that is simultaneously quirky and horrifying. The Catholic orphanage, the chilling Santa-related trauma, and that darkly comical toy store. These settings are alive with weird energy that makes the film unforgettable. The cast of characters is just as memorable, with Robert Brian Wilson absolutely nailing his role. I mean, sure, by the time Billy snaps and starts yelling "punish" at everybody in his path, subtlety is out the window, but the build-up to those moments are pure cinematic gold. And let's talk about the technical aspects. For a film made on a $750,000 budget, it punches way above its weight. The cinematography captures the holiday aesthetic perfectly, juxtaposing it with gruesome imagery in a way that feels deeply unsettling. Perry Botkin's score is haunting, a perfect backdrop to the chaos unfolding on screen. From its snow-covered streets to the unnerving set design, this film understands how to make a Christmas movie feel like a nightmare. It's no wonder this movie became a cult classic, despite being pulled from theaters after just a week. It's far and away the best entry in the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise, because none of the sequels even come close to this one. It's weird, bold, and utterly unapologetic, and that's why I love it. So that was Silent Night, Deadly Night. A magnum opus, a masterpiece, a perfect storm of horror and drama and Christmas gnarliness, I guess you could say. Christmas. It's just Christmas, tied up in a neat, bloody bow of red, bloody things, I guess you could say. And with that said, let's move on to my number 3 choice in this top 10 list. And I very much considered not putting this on the list because it's not really horror. It's sort of this weird balance. It's technically a kid's film, but there's so much spooky content in it, so much Halloween content, and of course you know what I'm talking about at this point, that I have to consider it worthy of the list. It definitely would make sense to talk about it on this channel because it's more spooky, more Halloween, more creepy, more scary vibes than anything else, and I think it definitely belongs in this list because of that. It's not straight horror, but it's horror adjacent, I will say that. You guys can discredit me or not want to count it on your own list, that's fine, but for me, this movie fits right in. And of course, if you haven't figured it out already, I don't see how you couldn't have. We're talking about 1993's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Let's talk about it. The Nightmare Before Christmas, a film I've adored since I was a kid. It's a magical, macabre masterpiece that somehow bridges Halloween and Christmas into a seamless, fantastical world. Tim Burton's original vision, brought to life by the incredible Henry Selick, is one of the finest examples of stop-motion animation in cinematic history. This movie is more than a film, it's a piece of art, really. Every frame is brimming with detail and personality, from the haunting charm of Halloween Town to the whimsical wonder of Christmas Town. The story itself is simple but profound. Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King, is a character I've always connected with, a soul searching for something new and something meaningful. The themes of self-discovery, belonging, and the consequences of ambition resonate just as deeply now as they did when I first watched it, and in some ways even more so. And let's not forget about Sally. Her quiet strength and love for Jack add a layer of warmth and humanity to the eerie, otherworldly story. Danny Elfman's score and songs, quite simply, are legendary. I still hum "This Is Halloween" and "What's This" every October and December. The way Elfman brought life to Jack's emotional journey through music is nothing short of genius. And the production design? It is jaw-dropping. The twisted, angular world of Halloween Town feels like it leapt straight out of Tim Burton's mind, because I guess it did, while Christmas Town is a vibrant, almost surreal explosion of joy and color. But what really makes this film special is its duality. It's the perfect Halloween movie and the perfect Christmas movie. It's creepy, whimsical, dark, and heartwarming all at once. Oogie Boogie, with his gambling lair and villainous charm, adds just the right amount of menace. And the ending, with Jack and Sally declaring their love against the backdrop of snow falling on Spiral Hill, is the kind of cinematic magic that stays with you forever. This film isn't just a childhood favorite, it's an enduring classic, an icon of American cinema and of animation. It deserves every ounce of its cult following and more. To me, it's the epitome of holiday storytelling, blending horror and heart in a way that no other film ever has. It's a masterpiece, pure and simple. And although I'm so sick of seeing the iconography of the film so overused every Halloween and Christmas, I still can't help but hold a special place in my heart for this movie. So that was Nightmare Before Christmas, a fantastic claymated Christmas, Halloween, horror, kids movie classic, and I've loved the film ever since it came out. I saw it in theaters at the age of 6 years old. I had the original book. Very good times were had by all. And with that said, let's move right into my number 2 choice, a choice that would be my number 1 choice if it weren't for the number 1 choice which exists. And of course, we're talking about 2015's Krampus and the number 2 spot. The number 2 spot again, only because the number 1 spot exists. This would have been my number 1, but this has to be my number 2 because I'm number 1. And with that said, since I'm rambling redundantly, let's move right into 2015's Krampus and talk about why it kicks so much ass. Let's go. Let's talk about Krampus, the 2015 Christmas horror masterpiece that has cemented itself as one of the greatest holiday films of all time. Directed by Michael Dougherty, who brought us the cult favorite Trick or Treat, this movie blends folklore, fear, and festive cheer into a cinematic treat that I adore on every level. First off, the story. Krampus takes the familiar Christmas narrative and turns it on its head, showing what happens when a family loses their holiday spirit. The result is a tale that's darkly funny, genuinely chilling, and surprisingly heartfelt. The script balances humor and horror seamlessly, keeping you on the edge of your seat while also laughing at the ridiculousness of gingerbread men coming to life and attacking people with nail guns. The acting? Pretty good across the board. Adam Scott and Toni Collette anchor the film as the exhausted parents, and David Koechner adds just the right amount of comedic bravado. But the standout performances for me come from MJ Anthony as Max and Krista Stadler as Omi. Their sincerity sells the emotional core of the film, making the chaos around them hit even harder. Now, let's talk about the production design. Where do I begin? It's perfect. Weta Workshop outdid themselves with the creature effects in this movie, from the menacing yet strangely regal Krampus to his army of twisted helpers. The elves are terrifying, the Jack-in-the-Box is nightmare fuel, and don't even get me started on the demonic gingerbread men and that cherub angel. It's all so meticulously crafted and visually stunning. Every snow-covered street, every eerie snowman, every flicker of firelight adds to the oppressive yet magical atmosphere. This is Christmas as you've never seen it before, equal parts cozy and equal parts horrifying. And let's not forget about the score by Douglas Pipes, which is a triumph in its own right. It weaves traditional holiday motifs with ominous undertones, perfectly capturing the film's dual nature. The music enhances every scene, whether it's a moment of quiet dread or full-blown terror. As a Christmas movie, Krampus captures the season's essence, while also delivering a much-needed edge. It's funny, it's scary, and it's bursting with creativity. The themes of family, tradition, and redemption resonate deeply, making it more than just a horror movie. It's a dark journey with a beating heart, a cautionary tale wrapped in a bow of festive terror. If it weren't for my absolute number 1 pick, Krampus would make the top spot on my holiday list, but even as a close contender, it reigns supreme in setting the perfect scary Christmas mood. I love it so much that I gladly revisit its twisted wonderland every December, and sometimes in July, because it's just that good. And that was Krampus. What do you guys think of 2015's Krampus? Write me in the comments below and let me know, and I will try to get back to you with a quick and very sarcastic reply, because I know a lot of people out there don't share my high opinion of that movie, and I plan to destroy you in the comments below. But with that said, let's move right into my number one choice for the best Christmas horror movie of all time, my favorite Christmas horror movie of all time, obviously, because it's my number one choice in this list, and we're talking about 1988's Scrooged. Now, a lot of people may not consider it straight horror. I get it. It's horror adjacent in the same way that Beetlejuice or Gremlins are, right? The same exact sort of vibe, I guess you could say. And with that said, I think it fits right into this list. I think it's definitely horror adjacent. There's a lot of creepy stuff happening, hauntings, ghosts, anxiety, death, the whole package. And Bill Murray is an absolute legend. So let's dive right into Scrooged and see why it made the cut in my number one spot. Let's go. Scrooged. What can I say about this movie other than its pure, unadulterated genius? Richard Donner's 1988 modern retelling of A Christmas Carol is an absolute tour de force, blending biting satire, heartfelt redemption, and a touch of the macabre. This is Christmas horror comedy at its finest, and it stands out as one of my all-time favorites. Let's start with the obvious. Bill Murray. His Frank Cross is a career-defining role, perfectly encapsulating his unmatched ability to be both hilariously cynical and profoundly moving. Frank is a TV executive so vile, so self-centered, that his eventual transformation into a man full of love and generosity feels like an absolute miracle. Murray's comedic timing is flawless, and his moments of vulnerability hit like a sledgehammer. Without him, the movie would still be good, but with him, it's iconic. The supporting cast is just as stellar. Carol Kane as the Ghost of Christmas Present is an absolute riot, blending unhinged humor with surprising warmth. David Johansen as the Ghost of Christmas Past is equally memorable, his sleazy cab driver persona feeling both modern yet timeless. What sets Scrooged apart for me is its clever modernization of Dickens' tale. Setting it in the cutthroat world of television is pure brilliance. The meta concept of Frank producing a live Christmas special while living out his own ghostly redemption arc is sharp and endlessly entertaining. It's a story within a story, layered with satire and wit that just feels as relevant today as it did in the late 1980s. And the ghosts, oh the ghosts. Each one is a masterpiece of design and characterization. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, with its skeletal visage and eerie swirling chest cavity, is pure nightmare fuel. The movie doesn't shy away from its darker elements, and that's what makes it so special. It's a comedy, yes, but it's also genuinely unsettling, walking the line between genres with ease. The pacing of Scrooged is another highlight. It's fast, frenetic, and packed with energy, but it never loses sight of its emotional core. The laughs come hard and fast, but so do the moments of quiet reflection, especially in the final act. And yes, the ending is unabashedly cheesy, with its sing-along to Put a Little Love in Your Heart, but by that point, the film has earned every ounce of awkwardness it cares to embrace. It's a cathartic release that leaves you grinning from ear to ear. Ultimately, Scrooged is a gift that keeps on giving. It's sharp, funny, heartfelt, and endlessly rewatchable. For me, it's a must-watch every Christmas season, a reminder that even the coldest hearts can be warmed by the magic of Christmas. It's not just a movie, it's a celebration of everything that makes the season special, wrapped in a deliciously dark and twisted package. So that was Scrooged, my number one Christmas horror movie of all time. What do you think about my top 10 list? As a matter of fact, Let's reiterate my top 10 list right now, just in case you forgot. At number 10, we had Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. At number 9, we had Black Christmas 2006. At number 8, we had Better Watch Out. Number 7 was Black Christmas Original. Number 6 was Christmas Evil. Number 5 was Gremlins. Number 4 was Silent Night, Deadly Night. Number 3 was The Nightmare Before Christmas. Number 2 was Krampus. And number 1 was, of course, Scrooged, which we just talked about. What do you think of my top 10 list? Let me know in the comments below, and I will valiantly argue with you as soon as I have the time to do so. And with all that said, let me know your top 10 Christmas horror movie list in the comments below as well, and I will pin the comment that I find to be the funniest or the best answer out of all of them. So go do it now, I guess, or I'll die. And with that said, I will see you guys on the next episode of Candy Bar Creepshow, which I promise will be my top 10 favorite vampire flicks of all time. And with that said, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching Candy Bar Creepshow. Please like the video, share it with your friends and family, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to hit that notification bell to stay current on all things TobattoVision. And I will see you guys next time. Have a good holiday season. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Merry Krampus, Happy New Year, and goodbye.